Let's begin with prayer. Let us pray. Blessed and loving Lord, I hold up before you all these people who are interested in reaching out to the world and showing the world your love for each and every person. And now I ask you to continue to inspire them, to encourage them, to energize them so that they can complete this ministry in ways that are the way you intend it to be completed. We ask for your continual help through everything we do. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let me share my screen. And that should be that one. And slideshow from beginning. All right, here we go. Let me get that down out of the way. All right, and if you will mute yourself, please, if you haven't already, I would appreciate that. Just makes it a whole lot easier, and we'll unmute for the Q&A for the question and answer later. And I think I've got them from all of you, but anyway, if you haven't sent in your comments on Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday, please do. Yeah, I've got them for the three of you, so you're okay on that. All right, what we're going to do today is have an in-depth discussion of several possible events or activities during Holy Week. We're gonna spend a large amount of our time looking at what's happening during Holy Week and how we can use those events to reach new people. We will then do a quick refresher on the major points of the overall process. That's so we can put the Holy Week into a more general context. And then we'll finish with some detailed training on your Facebook page, Facebook groups, Facebook events, Reels, and the powerful @ sign, how to use that. And we'll have a chance to do it. And that's why I asked for the extra 15 minutes so that we can have time to go through all that. And I think with what we've seen so far from Shrove Tuesday, Ash Wednesday, the blessing of the animals, all the other things that different churches have done, is we can say that these things work. We will bring we'll bring the church to the attention of people, and sometimes into their doors, but it takes time. It takes time. You've seen this one before. I won't spend any time on it, but I just want to remind you, I'm going to give you a lot of things. You can't do them all. Your church can't do them all. The last thing you want to do is overwhelm the church or yourself and end up just stopping. And the fact that I think you all know by now that I'm here for you at any time you have a question, anything that you wonder about, anything you need additional help on, ask me. I don't know everything. I know some good people and can 99% of the time be able to get you an answer. So first of all, as far as early Lent, the key thing, and you've heard me say it before, is acquiring the contact information and then following up. So the very first thing priority-wise, and we'll talk about priorities at the very end, is to make sure your efforts to obtain contact information are in place. Make sure your follow-up system is in place. And then make sure, and then maybe, because this is time-consuming and resource-consuming, but at some point, use the follow-up system, reach out to those people who have drifted away from the church. And I've been surprised at how much positive reaction some churches have gotten from doing that, from just reaching out and basically saying, are you still interested? Second of all, the social media team creation. I used to teach, for years I've taught, to beg, plead, cajole people to become part of the social ministry team, and have gotten very little response. So I'm changing my tone and saying we need to be willing to ask individuals directly and specifically, are you on Facebook? And if so, will you help your church for 2 minutes a week? Just let them know we're at least initially, we're just asking for very little time. I start with the vestry and other leaders because they are leaders, and it's important for them to be able to step up and lead. Only then ask others, and then use the bulletin and the newsletter, that kind of thing, to ask in more general matter, but don't expect a lot of results that way. You then create an email list of those people who have said yes. And when you post something helpful, something you want them to respond to, not every single thing you post, you don't want to overwhelm them, send them the information about where the post is and ask them to comment and share. Basically a nudge. And you probably need to send them the link because, and we'll talk about this a little later, there's a good chance they won't see it. They won't comment and share because they didn't see it. But we can send them the actual link so that they can go to it. And I'll show you how to do that. Include asking them to say for events that they are going, or at least interested. Our goal is to have the event look interesting and exciting. And when you only have one person going, that doesn't feel that way. And you'll see in a minute, it actually tells anybody who looks at the event how many people are planning to go. And yes, it'll take more than 2 weeks during Holy Week, but there'll be other weeks you may not ask for any help. Ask for a very few simple tasks, usually works better. I would remind the Daughters of the King and Brotherhood of St. Andrew that they have taken vows, which include evangelism. But even more so, every person who's ever been in an Episcopal baptism has vowed to God to proclaim by word and example. And this is one of the ways they can do it. Finally, and I've said this before, shut-ins and partial shut-ins can do virtually everything we're going to be talking about. And many of those are looking for ways to, quote, help their church. So to help get all that done, it's useful to have a social media coordinator. That's just my title. Not necessarily somebody who does a lot or is a techie, just someone who can do the recruiting and the reminding. And then they can do things like send out a how-to, explaining how to invite friends to events, and I can give them all the information they have. And again, don't forget your shut-ins. Make a list of nearby Facebook groups near your town, and I'm going to show you some of that later on, and have the church begin posting there. You need a team of church members. Church office people are already overbooked, and I've been in enough vestries. The first thought is, oh, the office staff can do that too. Well, honestly, they can't. So we need to have people that help them out. Follow-up system. We'll talk about details later, but now the whole point is your follow-up system is critical. You have had guests and those who drifted away. How will they know about Holy Week activities? That's the question before you. How will they get that information? The fact you put it on your website, the fact that you put it on a newsletter, maybe they'll read it. You give them a text, they're much, much more likely, probably a factor of 3 or 4, more likely to see it. The Lenten Cross is one of my favorites. I think it might be easier to show you the photos first, then go back and talk about it. This is what I mean. This is what 2 churches did. They're prepared. Basically, what they've done is they put a cross on their front property, and there's some physical thing people are invited to do. Well, the one on the left, there was a pile of sticks. You can't, well, I guess you just barely see it down at the bottom, right above the word main, that they're invited to pick up and add a stick to the cross as a symbol or of their prayer, of an indication of their prayer. The one on the right, they take a rock out of one of the boxes there, the larger of the 2 boxes, and they put it in a little basket under the cross. It's similar to lighting a candle. It's just a physical way to indicate your prayer and to get people involved. This is the one you're most likely to create interactions with new people by. And you place it somewhere where people walk by. And again, the church is perfect, but if you don't have a good place there, a business might allow it, or a member's home can also be another one that is good. And you can have more than one. You're not limited to having one. If away from the church in any place, make sure your church is identified. Explain it's for prayers, not just confession. And as I say, have something people can do. Give them the option of writing a prayer request and leaving it in some container. Some kind of mailbox works well, and it has a latch on it so nobody can reach in and pull it out. That's a good thing. Say you will include their requests in the church's prayer group, personal prayers, etc. Talk to your clergy about how that's going to be done. Use the contact card with room for prayer requests. In other words, you get their contact information if they want to leave it. They don't have to. You need to make that clear. And then if you get a response with the contact information, you respond immediately. Thank you for honoring us with your prayer request. That's plenty. You don't have to do any more than that. You don't need any more information on it. If you notice, they both had a little poster explaining what's going on and what it's all about and how to proceed. So you need that. Again, arrange for a daily pickup of the prayer requests. Now, this can be a great news release, and I will send you a model, or I already sent it out. I'm not sure which, but I already sent it out. But if you don't have it, anytime I said I've already sent it to you, if you can't lay your fingers on it real quick, just ask me. I'm more than happy. I'd much rather send it 2 or 3 times than you not have it. TV would like the flexibility of coming when they can to do it. If TV is coming, you might want to ask them, would they like to make sure there's somebody there to talk to them? And they'll inevitably say yes. I showed you the couple chairs and a small table to make it comfortable. That was nice. You could do a online Lenten prayer cross, have a landing page with a place to fill out the form, which then comes back to you and you can then respond. I would announce this on social media once a week throughout Lent, and maybe anonymously mention the type of prayer requests. This week we got requests for curing of cancer, for help with a divorce, people are more likely to respond if they know others have responded. This is a great thing to do a Facebook event about, and I'm going to talk about those a lot in a little while. And also a reel, using real people at the cross. And again, I'll talk about reels later on toward the end. Lenten programs. Most important thing here, and most of you have already started your programs if you're going to do them, most important is make them interesting. And it doesn't matter how great your program itself is. It could be fantastic. But if the title is boring, you're unlikely to have people show up. You can promote this each week as a specific topic, and I'll show you how I did that through events at one church as we get toward the end of this presentation. You just announce each week as a separate event, even if it comes from the same book or program or whatever. Okay, turning to Holy Week itself. Palm Sunday is a hard one because there really aren't broad, obvious questions about it. When we get to Maundy, Thursday, we have foot washing, we have stripping of the altar, we have, things like that we can talk about. Palm Sunday's pretty well known. But you could try why wave branches in church if you don't make the crosses for everybody, but you actually have the branches. I kind of like the extremes meet, glorification to condemnation. To me, that's the power of that service, is the movement from Jesus's triumphal entry to him being arrested. Use Facebook events, posts, and reels to announce it. And this is important because you're probably not going to get many people who have never been to church. But you may get members who drifted away and non-members who have history in some church. In other words, those who know what Palm Sunday is all about are the ones likely to respond, not those with big questions. All right, Maundy, Thursday, and Holy Week, in fact, in the whole year, this is one of the big days, and it's a day we tend not to emphasize very much. We just kind of, and this is, I've got my hand up. You can't see it, but I got my hand up. And this is the fault of at least some clergy. We're so tired. We got so much going on in Holy Week that Maundy Thursday is just one more thing we got to do. But there's so much to talk about. There is just so much to talk about. The you talk about the washing your feet in church, and I will send you a video I did about this that you could do. You could show, even if you're not doing it, even if you could say some churches do. I think the fact Jesus washes Judas's feet is just so powerful. The idea he washes John's feet is pretty powerful, but the fact he acknowledges Judas's role and then washes his feet. That to me is just an amazing thing, particularly in today's atmosphere, in today's world. The stripping the altar bare, you have to play around a little bit with words, but that'd be a reasonable question. You play with the new commandment, and you can build off the word Maundy, which comes from the Latin for commandment. So you can ask the question, what is a Maundy anyway? And then build into the talking about the new commandment. You can talk about why Jesus was arrested. That people think they understand that, but if you ask the question, they'll probably go, let me read about this for a minute. Was this the first communion service? Great question. Great way to talk about how different traditions call it the Last Supper, even on Sunday, things like that. This is perfect to do a series of posts. And remember, you can do the posts 2 or 3 weeks early and time them to go in. You don't have to be doing all this during Holy Week when you're already so terribly busy. You could have 1 or even 2 a day focusing on some questions. The short explanations and short reels can be great. The events can be great. The great opportunity for this social media team I mentioned to not just comment, but discuss. This is a great time to get them involved just a little bit deeper. In other words, one person says, I've never been to a foot washing. And somebody else says, well, I have been, and it was really kind of nice. And a third person says, what's it all about? That kind of conversation. And that just shouts at Facebook that this is an interesting topic, and they'll begin to show it much more broadly. I will write up and send you a multi-activity press release. In other words, a press release for Maundy Thursday. You can take the paragraphs that work for you and use those, and the ones that don't, if you're not doing a foot washing, you just take that paragraph out and ignore it. Okay, Good Friday. The big question on Good Friday is, why do we call it good? And that question by itself will get you some attention. Although you'll get other theological answers, the basic answer is it's Old English for either God's Friday or Holy Friday or Pious Friday. You can see all 3 of those kind of overlap in meaning. If you have a labyrinth, this is a great time to do an instructed walk, maybe at 3 o'clock, the traditional time of understanding that Jesus died. Promote it throughout Lent, but especially during Holy Week. Explain it as a prayer walk. It's not some kind of magical spell maker. It's not that. And one of the ways to get that across is use words like traditional and ancient prayer practice. It will give it some credibility. It's another great reason for a press release, possibly middle of Lent. Don't wait for Holy Week. You got a lot of other things to talk about. Include a photo with people walking on it. It drives me absolutely crazy that how many churches have pictures on their websites or Facebook pages or news releases showing a labyrinth with nobody there. The interesting part is people using it. So it's very visible, so it's good TV possibility. If you need any help with any of that, let me know. Find a way to offer the contact cards. probably as they're leaving. I think offering contact cards as they're going in is a little, to me feels a little pushy. As they're leaving, even if it's just a table with a note on it, and a little sign that says, here, fill this card out if you're interested. Stations of the Cross. This can be a prayer walk through the community or at your church. In Thomasville, North Carolina, we used to do a mile-long walk, and we stopped at several of the churches along the way. In Greensboro, North Carolina, they do a downtown walk. Don't know if they're doing it this year. I haven't seen anything about it. But anyway, and they have stops at places like the county jail, the city hall, the food pantry, places like that. And then they have the appropriate readings at that point. If you're doing it at your church, it can be inside or outside. The real advantage to outside, of course, is it's open and available to people at any time. The disadvantage is you're opening it up to people spray painting it or doing things like that. But again, you could make it available at any time with a corporate walk at 3 p.m. Friday. It's not well known. The Stations of the Cross beyond Roman Catholics is not well known, even though it's very much in the tradition of all the Protestant religions. So it's a great reason for a press release, for explanations. It's very visual. So the possibility to TV. I will again give you a model press release. You could put it online. If you got somebody who's good on the website and wants to do a page maybe for each of the stations, and there's lots of good graphics on the internet that you could just cut and paste. And then let people just page through the stations. If so, at the end, give them the option to fill in contact information. If you have it at your church, at the end, give them the opportunity to fill in contact information. And then, of course, you got the Good Friday service itself. I would certainly include it in the press releases, but again, it's not likely to attract coverage, media coverage, and it's not likely to attract totally unchurched people. Somebody might come out of curiosity. There's always that outlier, but this is mainly aimed at, your announcement of it is mainly aimed at people with a church background, former members, people who had once been active in a church somewhere, that kind of thing. Easter egg hunt. The question is, what's your goal? If the goal is to include new people, if the goal is to meet new families, then I strongly recommend not connecting it to the Sunday service. If you say immediately after our Sunday service, we'll have an Easter egg hunt, what you are saying is you have to pay for your candy by coming to the service. That's not what you intended, but that's how it comes across. Now, none of the churches here are going to compete with the large church that drops thousands of eggs from a helicopter. I mean, we ain't going to match up with them. We ain't going to compete with them. You have something else to offer. You have a community to offer. I'm not sure in Rochester you have anybody dropping thousands of eggs from a helicopter, but in some of the smaller towns we do. As always, the best approach is direct invitations. So you put together a postcard-sized invitation similar to what I sent you for Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday, print them on the index weight paper, and give them to members to hand out. If you have any kids, beg them to hand them to their friends. That's the best way to get the word out. Adults can give them out. PTA meetings can be great places because you're dealing with parents. Another approach is to create a yard sign similar to election signs. Place it on the drive-in path for elementary school pickup lines. Again, I don't know in Rochester how that works. You probably have mainly busing, but in other communities, a lot of people drive their kids to and from school, and there is a long line waiting to pick them up after school. You can phrase the yard sign so you can use it next year. Just say Easter egg hunt, 5 o'clock Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is. and just put it in, use it, pick it up and use it next year. Another option is to walk the line of cars waiting to pick up children, hand out invite cards. Most schools have long lines on public streets, so you're perfectly legit walking the street. But if somebody asks you to leave, I wouldn't argue. I just go, it's not worth creating a hassle over. Another option is the daycare facilities near you. Yard signs at the daycare facilities or just posters on the outside. Remember, most parents never get into the daycare facility. Most of the time the kids are brought out of the daycare facility to the car. So putting something up inside is not very helpful. You might move the sign from the school to the daycare center. Do that. Ask the daycare center if you can hand out invites. Again, don't just put them on a table inside. I did that one time, realized how useless it was. Inside the door because no parents come in. Will they allow you to offer them to the parents as they drive up or walk up to pick up their kids? Organize your Easter egg hunt for a bigger crowd than you've ever had. And that's so you don't let the older kids run over young ones. That's the worst publicity you could possibly get. If the young kids are run over by the older ones, those families are not coming back. Have separate areas or starting times is one way to do that. We'll talk again more about events and reels. Remember, you can do a slideshow and narrate it, and it's shown as if a video. And sometimes that's the easiest way to do something. I've got that tutorial on boosting if you need it. One option, have an Easter bunny there for photos. And if you're going to do that, announce it. Make a big deal about it in all your announcements. Getting the contact information. You've heard me talk about this. I will not let you go on that. Again, assertive, not aggressive. We need to be asking without demanding. A prayer center on any of these things I've talked about is always appropriate. You could have people waiting to pray with people as they come off the labyrinth, for example. And you can invite them to write their prayer requests on contact cards, or if they want their prayers immediately, do that and then offer them the contact cards. At the Easter egg hunt, you might have a free gift basket. You might be able to get a local business of some kind to donate a gift basket. And the entry to getting that is the contact card. Announce, thank you for coming. Have you found enough candy? In other words, toward the end of it, one of the people grabs the microphone and says, thank you for coming. Hope you found enough eggs or candy. We would love to let you know about other things happening. Please complete one of these cards. Now, I want to stop for just a second and mention the fact that all the cards have that I have sent you have the opt-out option. In other words, they have the option, check here if you don't want to hear from us. So it's still there, they're still volunteering. If, and some churches do this, if you're not providing candy, if you're doing small toys of some kind, make sure to make that clear in your announcements. You can make it a positive thing, but make it clear. Somebody comes in and expects to get candy, instead gets a couple little finger puppets, is probably not going to be happy. Now, as always, follow up with anybody who signs in. Easter Vigil. One more where you're probably not going to attract any news coverage, but you promote it in all the normal ways to reach out to those other groups. If you do a first light fire and have the photos or videos, that can be a good thing to show you. Again, it's a great post showing last year's fire. You're unlikely to get somebody brand new coming even with that, but it will attract attention. They will hear the name of your church. Likely attendees would be members, those who drifted away, previously church persons. Inactive Roman Catholics are, I should have said this in all the different activities. Inactive Roman Catholics are a big potential demographic to be interested in these things we do, because it's within their tradition. The Methodists who are looking around, most of them don't have a lot of these things in their tradition, but they might be interested in learning about a new tradition. So we definitely want to tell them and everything, but the inactive Roman Catholics can be a really important group to reach out to. And then Easter. Well, the bad news is lots of churches are going to be posting when their Easter services are. The good news is those churches have not done the groundwork. They are not as well known as you will be. So the same announcement from you will actually have more impact. That said, keep your expectations realistic. If you end up with 2 or 3 guests who leave their contact information, that's a pretty darn good result. I mean, we want 10. We'd love 20. But if we get 2 or 3, that's pretty good. The key here, and why I keep on emphasizing the follow-up system, is all these people have left their contact information for the last, well, not just last 6 weeks before Easter, but the last couple years, hopefully you've tied in. Now we have to make sure they feel invited to Easter. They visited at Christmas and you haven't seen them since. Well, you want to make sure you invite them to Easter, and hopefully they'll become more than a Christmas and Easter attendee. All right, the overall process, and I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. If you want more detailed information or want to share this with people, there's a YouTube copy of the entire presentation. But we always emphasize, and this really is important. I know it sounds like maybe I'm just making it up, but no, it really is important that our goal is not to increase attendance or budget. When we focus on that, we're being selfish, and people will know that. People will feel that. Our goal is to help people grow closer to God. And when we do that, some people will want to associate with us. Now, the side benefits, fringe benefits, if you will, include more people to help with ministry, like the food pantry or whatever, more attendance, and income increase. But those are fringe benefits. Those are not the primary reason. They're nice fringe benefits. Make no mistake. So I've defined evangelism as a series of deep spiritual conversations. That requires the listener trust the speaker. Now, this is important, and you may not agree with me, but I believe every human being was created by God with a desire to know God better. That's important because that means what we're doing is not trying to thrust something on them they don't want. We're trying to help them feed a hunger they do have. Pre-evangelism, the process of building a trusting relationship that allows the evangelism to happen. So why aren't our churches full? And the answer is basically we're not trusted. Christians and churches have a very bad reputation among many people. This is really important, but it's hard for people who've attended church all their life to believe anybody thinks poorly of churches, but they do. And you also have habits and schedules. Even if people have not been attending church since, say, pre-COVID, they're doing something else on Sunday morning. And we're asking them to change their habits, change their schedules, and that's a hard thing to do. I showed you this before, and the full survey information is at that site, but this is particularly what I want to call to your attention. The question was, what characteristics do you associate with Christians in general? When they asked Christians that question, 57% said Christians are giving. Sounds good. But the fact is, 43% of Christians would not say Christians are giving. 44% of Christians would not say Christians are compassionate, and so on. So we got a bad reputation, even among our own people. And we all know that's because of some churches have misbehaved so poorly and people associate the word church with those misbehaving places, fine, but that doesn't make any difference. They still think of that. So our challenge is we wouldn't want to associate with those people, and we don't expect others to do so, because that's what they think of when church is meant. When you say St. Swithin's Episcopal Church, church is the word that leaps out at them. They don't hear the rest of it. In Scripture, Nathanael asks the question, can anything good come from Nazareth? Can anything good come from a church? The answer to that is not automatic. We think it's automatic. It's not. We need to answer that question for people. So is there any hope? There is, if we make the effort, because people can distrust and even despise church while loving your people, while loving your congregation. It's the reason I so recommend using the word church as seldom as possible. Use people, use congregation, use us, things like that are people focused rather than institutional focused. So the data is that roughly a third of Americans believe in God, but do not have a spiritual home. A third of Americans believe in God, do not have a spiritual home, and are willing to talk to us about spirituality. They're not anxious to do so. We've got to grab their attention, but they're willing to talk if they feel respected and if we touch on things that concern them. So what's the potential for your church? Well, I said about a third of the population are willing to talk. Near your church is about a 20-minute travel time, more in rural areas, probably a little less in an urban area. And if you want to know how many that is, if you need help figuring that out, let me know. But here are two sources of data you can go to get that information. This one is much easier to use than the one the Episcopal Church produced is extremely complicated. It has some good information, depends what you're looking for, but for what we're looking for, it's extremely complicated. We need to intrigue them enough to want to know the worship times. In other words, the worship times are not important until they're interested. You've seen this. I think it's a 3-stage process. Stage 1 is intriguing the people down to the point where they trust us a little bit. Only then are they likely to interact with us. Stage 1 is primarily non-personal, social media, news reports, that kind of thing. Stage 2 is more personal. Then stage 3 is the relating together. The big problem is when people expect instant results, because it will take time. The scriptural image I kind of like is the first stage of intrigue is plowing the field. The second stage, the interact, is planting seeds. The relate stage is seeing the growth. We don't want to ghost people. We don't want them to feel like we didn't even notice them drifting through our consciousness. And that we do that so much on just about on most activities, we end up doing that. The yard sale, the neighborhood group that meets in the fellowship hall, all of those, we don't tend to interact with them. But I don't know why that's jumping on me. I apologize. Okay. But the importance of the process is the reverse. The most important thing is to relate, because if we don't relate, we wasted all of our time. If the second most important is interact, because if we don't interact with them, we can't relate to them. And surprisingly, the least important, and it's extremely important, it's just third on the priority list, is the intrigue phase. If we don't build that relationship, we've just wasted all that time. The key to relating is communication. That's what it's all about. Email, unlikely to accomplish the goals because few emails are open. Research says over and over again that maybe 20 to 25% of the people will open our email. It may be higher with the very first email, but by the time you get to the third one, they're going, oh, I'll read that later, and never get around to it. Texting is a bit more difficult, but more likely to be effective. It's seen 90% of the time. And because it's short, people will read it. The minute they see it, they know it's going to take them 10, 15 seconds to read it. If anybody still has questions, I can send you samples from other churches. All that said, if all you have is the email list or their physical address, use it. And there's still a couple slots for churches that want to begin texting, but have a budgetary problem. I will pay for the first year. This is kind of a fun little cartoon. It's been out a while. The member is asking, why didn't you let us know about the new service schedule? And the priest says, well, I announced it last Sunday and put it in the bulletin. Then next, we put it in the weekly email. Third one, we called it through the all parish phone-a-thon, and they still didn't get the message. If that's, and anybody who's worked in a church office knows this story. And that's very true. And if it's true for the member, think of what it's like for the non-member. That's why I like texting. You got a much higher probability of getting a point across. I said it's more difficult. It's more difficult because you have to be very concise. You can mention one thing in a given text. But there's a bottom line I'd encourage you to just think about, and that's if people are upset because you want to send them information, they're not coming back anyway. If you send them a note about Monday, Thursday, and they say, don't send me anything else, just say, thank you very much, have a blessed day, and don't send them anything else. And don't worry about it. There are going to be people like that. It's just fact of life. The valuation effort that I like is, are they still connected to a church a year after their first interaction? So, for example, how many of the 2022 Christmas guests are active today? Do you even know who was a guest at Christmas 2022? And that's a little bit of a tricky question, because Christmas and Easter are typically the two worst days to get contact information. The 2 days we have to work the hardest, and we tend not to. Less than 10% of first-time Sunday guests will still be connected to the church 1 year later. And you can look at your own, if you keep records on who's visited, you can look at your own and see if you aren't in that ballpark. Again, I throw this slide in every once in a while just because I'm really fearful of me overwhelming you and just feeling like I can't do it. I can't do it all. So I just want to keep telling you, you can't do it all, and I will help you in any way I can. All right, there are two really important questions. And in fact, if there's anything you write down from tonight, these two questions would be the ones I'd encourage you to write down. And that's for everything you do, everything: Sunday service, yard sale, neighborhood association, voting, blood drive, everything. You ask the question, how can I meet new people through this activity? How can I meet new people through this activity? In other words, really focus our head on what we can do. Not see them or even greet them, but actually meet them. And I would say meet means at least at some point an exchange of names. Now, that may not happen right away. You may not get that far. But the idea is to try to get that far. And we ask that question for all the Holy Week efforts. And I've said this before, the last yard sale bazaar, how many did you see? How many did you meet? How many are now actively ministering with you? And it is possible for people to make that leap from yard sale buyer to active member if we care enough to reach out to them. The second question, I said the first question is important to write down, but the second question to write down, What do people leave knowing about your church they did not know when they arrived? Let's use a blood drive. What do people know about your church they did not know when they walked in to donate blood? And the answer is probably nothing. And having a couple brochures available is just not enough. As far as Sunday service goes, what do they learn reading your announcements? That Sunday, it's interesting, but if you think about it, the guest is the person who probably reads the bulletin most thoroughly. What part of your story are you telling? This may be your only chance to tell that particular guest, that particular person, your story. Is there something in there that says you're seeking to make the world better? Maybe a food pantry or a habitat build. Is there something in there about your youth? Is there something about, and it doesn't have to be, it could be the youth are meeting 2 weeks from now. That's fine. That's fine. That just announces you have a youth group. Always assertive, never aggressive on any of this. You've seen these before, or I don't know who's now on, but for the people who were with me before, this is a banner we did for a Lutheran church. This phrase is one the Lutherans use a lot. I love it. I'd like to steal it. God's work, our hands. That's what grabs their attention. That's the half a second. And then above and below are specific ways that fill that out. It was used at a flower sale. Again, notice it's assertive, it's visible, it's there. It'd be hard not to see it, but it's not in your face. This is how it's used at the North Essex Self. So again, coming out of a blood drive, coming out of an AA meeting, coming out of any of those, they can learn a little something about the church. We also use photos to try to demonstrate this is a food pantry. You can't really see it well, I know. This is the food pantry. Let's see, this is the youth group, and this is their music program. This church is particularly proud of their music program. So they have some photos. Again, notice just a couple words. You get the impression in half a second or a little bit more. So how do we get their contact information? Well, we want to be assertive, never aggressive. You have to ask and you have to follow up. But I've given you a number of things about getting their contact information for various events. Just if you don't have them or you've got questions about it, please, please, please let me know. So we're at the intrigue stage. If you will, people might call this advertising. It's not really. Promotion, yeah, kinda. But it really is intriguing. It's to grab their attention and then tell them our story. Just make them stop for a second and pay attention, and then tell them our story. The business instructors will say a person needs to be touched by a product or service, and that means they see, learn about it, experience it, whatever, multiple times before they make a decision. That's why you see so many different commercials for the same product and the same commercial over and over again. The advertisers know you have to hear about it multiple times. Multiple touches is a phrase that a lot of people use. We begin with a negative impression. If you're selling shampoo, you don't have a negative impression to start with. You just need to tell people this is the best shampoo. We start with a negative impression. So we need even more touches than the shampoo does. So let's keep working the system. General principles, you have half a second or less to get their attention. Most will be seen on a cell phone. Most everything you do will be seen on a cell phone. Probably about 80% of what you do will be seen on a cell phone. So double check that looks good. Posters need to be understood from 6 feet away. People are not likely to walk up to a wall and read something in 12-point print. If you got something on the street, figure people are traveling 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, which means you don't have much time to get your point across. But this last one, I just can't emphasize enough. If you have again, an award-winning video or slideshow, just something that, the whole world would applaud if they looked at. But the very opening, the thing people see when it first comes to their attention, if that is not exciting, nobody's going to see the rest of it. That is, 100 times I can say it. That is the most important. What they see right away. So then they'll click on it and keep on watching. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. We use social media because that we can put this stuff in front of people. Website, YouTube, Google Ads, they have to come looking for it. And that includes your Facebook page itself, but that's a little different because the posts direct them to it. So you got a little better chance they'll come to that. Again, you're not going to do everything. It's very important to build a team. Focusing on Facebook, I just want to repeat a couple things I said earlier, that you need a team. And the Reels, these are, and I'll talk about these a little more in a minute, but these are short vertical videos. They're Facebook's thing right now. Different times, just like any business, they have different things they focus on. So they're focusing on the Reels. Events is another good way, and I'll show you them in a second. You also have the videos I've mentioned, both the ones that TriTank has put out, and there are others on the internet, as well as ones you can do yourself. Stream services. Most churches don't pay attention to their guests. Some do a little bit through the chat function or whatever, and that's fine. That's great. But you can do more. This is a very easy thing to put together. I don't particularly like the font. I can say that because I did it. It's the type of thing you have to really spend some time looking at the first time. After that, you just use it over and over again. But like right there, you lose the word touch in one. We would love to keep you in touch. Yeah. The T isn't very good. We lose the U in the candle. So, it takes time to work it out right. But once you got it worked out, it's just a matter of turning it on and off. No problem at all. Non-social media, don't tell me only the big conservative churches get press release. This one came from a church that St. Matthew's in Kernersville, North Carolina, is currently averaging 8 to 10 people on a Sunday morning. Yeah, I said 8 to 10. And they got this huge article just by saying something to the newspaper. It's a 3-time-a-week newspaper, just giving them something of interest that they could build on. I've sent you the slides. You can read the whole article. It's actually very good. The reporter did a good job, but Lee, who represented the church, Lee Cannon, did a great job with some of her quotes. All right, the Facebook groups I want to talk to you about. If you go to your main site, your main page, this is the groups icon up there. You click on that. And what you get, hold on a second, just changing a page here. You get a panel where you can go over and you can search for groups in your area. In this case, I was just searching in Sanford, North Carolina for parents. But what you get is a whole lot of others. You get specifically the parents group, which has 1,600 members, but you also get the more general group, which has 10,000 members. I probably wouldn't do autism. Moms of Sanford don't have many members, but it just takes a second to send things to them. Would not do homes for sale or rent, but the general one again. The point is you can reach out to thousands of people. Now remember, not all 10,000 see your post. Only a very small number of them do. So it's important for your members, that social media team I've talked about, to be on these sites. And when they see a post, they comment and share on the site, on the group, as well as on the church's site. This is some more that were just in Sanford. You notice you got a couple moms groups. So you want to search multiple ways. You want to search the local county as well as the town. If there's a nearby town, you want to search for that. But they ended up with, the other one to search for, depending on your church, and if you're comfortable doing this, LGBTQ is one that you'll find virtually no churches are friends with those groups. So if you're comfortable being a friend with those groups, that's one definitely to get involved with. And they had almost 20,000 accounts. I did this a week ago, so they probably have 20,000 by now. If in these various groups they can reach out to. Again, this takes somebody who had some time. You can't dump this on the current staff or anything like that. It's unlikely to work. You need to do it well. You need somebody who has the time to actually spend not a lot of time. Doesn't take a lot of time once you find the groups and you're a member of them. All right, events, and I'll go through them in just a second, but basically here are two tutorials not done by me, but done by Jerry Potter. He's an excellent, excellent person. If you are interested in all this, I would subscribe to his site. He's the man I go to when I have questions. All right, let me just quickly go through the how we do this. On this one is the cover page to the Lutheran Church of Our Father, and you go over to the professional dashboard. This is a change. And on the professional dashboard, you find events. And you click on that. And now you come up to, this is one of the events they have. You notice, just like everything else, you have a photo, starts with a photo. You can change that. That can be your normal Facebook photo, or it can be something new. I probably need to go back and change this again, but the book is What is the Least We Can Believe, I Can Believe, and Still Be a Christian. So the title itself is engaging. I use the title again down here. You have a title option. So many people, and I just saw one today that I sent a comment to a church, one of our churches. We'll just have like, something's happening on Saturday at 12 o'clock. Who's going to bother reading that? You got to have something that grabs their attention. Notice you can do repeats. This actually repeats further. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I can't draw an arrow. This actually repeats out for 2 more weeks through Lent. You can boost it, which means turning it into an ad. And you can invite people. Of course, you can edit it at any time. And this I'm going to show you what this little arrow does. It's actually a very powerful little arrow. If you tap on that arrow, this is what you get. And remember I said, let the people know where to go to get the event or to share the event. There it is. They give you a link to make it easy to share. They want you to be successful. You can share it to your feed, and you can share it to a group. And I'll show you the groups in just a minute. This is further down. We're still on the basic event page. All right. As long as you put your address in, you get a map. Why aren't I getting, there we go. You get a map for somebody who comes and looks at it. This is probably one of your more important. That original headline is probably number 1. Number 2 is that little discussion area you have. You don't have a lot of space, but remember, you want to get across the time and the date and the place have already been said. You don't have to say those again. Go ahead and write something that's exciting to people. You can invite your followers just by hitting invite. You can invite groups that you are a member of just by hitting invite, or share rather. And that gives you the opportunity to say more. You don't just, it doesn't just, when you hit that, you actually can say more about the event. Then you go over and you can go to your groups, which is actually a longer list, every group that you've joined, and it becomes very, very, very easy for you to share it to all these different places. Facebook wants you to be successful. That's how they make money. So they make it as easy as possible. All right, I want to mention the @ sign, and I call this the powerful @ sign because it is powerful. If you want to share a post or an event with specific people, just do @ in their name. Now, you have to do the name the way it's shown on Facebook knows them. So if you put @ Kenneth Cruz, they would not find me. You have to put @ Ken Cruz. But this is a great way to get the information out to your team. You could do that as a simple way to get it to the team. They would all get a notice in their notification. And you can put a note on it to something like, this will be fun or whatever. @ friends will go to all your friends. You can't only use that once a week. I would use it with a fair amount of caution, knowing, I don't want to spam my friends. The page administrator has admin next to their name. They can use @ everyone. And what that does, I've mentioned it several times, that the original post goes to a very small number of people in your group. Well, if you're a group, then that works well. But other than that, you probably want to use the @ followers. That goes to all your page followers. And that's the one normally a church would use, because most of you have, I've looked at a lot of your Facebook pages, and you have hundreds of followers, but only maybe, let's say you got 300 followers, maybe 30 or 40 you'd see your original post, unless you use the @ followers. And again, you can only use it once a week. Facebook does not want you spamming. Reels is, again, I mentioned these are vertical videos, and that Facebook is particularly showing them with a lot of interest right now. Try to work in your geographical location verbally as well as in the text on the screen. And I can send you, if you don't know how to do one of these videos or don't have anybody in your congregation who knows how, I can send you a little quick tutorial on it. Again, you've wasted your time if that cover image doesn't grab attention. Depending on your topic, you want to show passion or excitement. If the speaker is bored or comes across as bored, the audience is bored and will, boy, that word was supposed to be leave. Anyway, missed that one this morning. And find out, try to ask a question. Questions always get much more attention. The Jerry Potter I mentioned likes to use the phrase brain gap. When you ask people a question and they don't have the answer, they feel like there's something missing, and they'll seek to fill that brain gap. So whenever possible, try to lead off with a question in that opening image, remembering it has to be readable on a cell phone, so you only have a few words. You can focus on what you want them to learn that's different from what they're now thinking. Churches believe in science might be a statement. What objection to Christianity am I addressing? Christians are not hateful might be a statement. Personal witness from somebody in the video is always helpful. You got 90 seconds. That's not a lot of time. So I invite you to script it, even if you don't actually read the script. Know what you want to do and to punch it down. And if you're like me, aim for 75 to 80 seconds, and maybe with luck, you'll get it in under 90. Detail on landing pages. I've mentioned this a number of times. This is basically a one-page location people can go to get all the information that they want. This was a sample I put together for Christmas. I just didn't have a chance to put one together for Holy Week, but you can make the adjustment. somebody wants to know what's going on at the Episcopal church near them before Christmas or during Holy Week, they go to this one place, they learn everything they need to know, the activity and the time and the place. Now, you can make these links if you want to provide more information. So, for example, if you wanted to have a page that talked about foot washing, you could have the foot washing on your landing page, and it's an active link to get them to the discussion or maybe the reel or something about foot washing. St. Joseph's in McDonough, Georgia did this a little differently. They did it just as you can see, just a listing on the screen. That's fine. It gives them all the information again. They did something I thought was important. They also put their regular Sunday service. They made it clear that what their Sunday service schedule was. I do like making Easter stand out. It's like bringing the Alleluias back. On your Facebook page, you have as long as 2 seconds probably to grab their attention. You don't have that half a second I've talked about, but they've come voluntarily to your page. So you've got a little more time. And this is just kind of a one page that, again, this is St. Joseph's in McDonough, Georgia. This is a good intro. It would make me want to read more about them. Probably be good to have a little more about ministry, but actually what they've done, this featured is a really important tool to use. They have their monthly, are they monthly or weekly? I can't remember now. But anyway, announcements of activities and what they do. Remember I told you about your bulletin telling your story? Well, you can't see this, but this is where their alms are going for the month, their contributions for the month. This is something, a fun thing, game night. And then as you go down, you read through their list of activities. You're going to know a lot about their church, whether you ever go to any one of them. Then this is nice to have, a welcome video. If you do the communion video I talked about, that'd be a good place for that to be. If you're come to this page, all right, and this is what you see, think about it. The place you're going to go is that right there, the about. And this is what most churches have under their about page, probably 80-90% of churches. We need to fill that in. It's like somebody walked up to you in the street and said, hey, I know you go to St. Swithin's. Tell me something about that church. And you turn and walk away without saying a word. That's what we've done. Now, again, we need to focus it on ministries. I think starting with some phrase along the lines of, we are a people who serve God by, not our worship services at 10:30 on Sunday morning. They know you worship. Tell them something they don't know. Now, later on, toward the end of it, you can put the worship times and stuff in there. I'm not saying those are unimportant. I'm just saying you got to get them interested before they'll show up on worship. Photos, again, it probably the page that the second tab most people will look at is your photos tab. Got to make sure they'll show on a cell phone. I've said that 100 times. It's important to have some kind of text to explain what it's about. Reviews and mentions are very important. Try to get a new one every month and respond to any negatives, either knock them off or respond to them. This, for example, is when you first read this review, you're thinking, oh, this is great. This is a wonderful church. Then you look at it and realize the review is 7 years old and it's actually 3 clergy back. You need to get new ones. And that's a great role for your team. Don't get them all done on the same day. Get them done every couple of weeks or something. Focus on ministry. Don't focus on the worship. Focus on ministry. Don't focus on how incredibly welcoming you are. how you're the friendliest church, because every church says they're the friendliest church in town. Doesn't hurt to say that. Just don't make that your whole pitch. I have not been talking truly evangelism, those deep spiritual conversations I mentioned. The National Church has good information online about that. Do I need to go through this again? Please don't get frustrated because you can't do it all. Pick something, and if you need help brainstorming priorities, just ask. We can get together and talk. You can tell me about your church and what's going on, and I can maybe make some suggestions and suggest some things you just don't do this year. The first priority is prayer. Now, it's not praying that people show up at our church. That's not what it's about. The first priority is to pray that for us, to pray that we be changed, that we become the person who shows God's love well enough that people want to associate with us and learn about God's love through us. The prayer is that we be changed, not they be changed. If anybody wants to register, there it is. I'll be sending out lots of stuff, as I've mentioned. So if they want to continue to get the new material. Finally, the priorities for this week, again, is first of all, what are you going to do on Holy Week? You can't do much until you know that. And then ask that question, how can we meet new people through that activity? Build a team for each activity. Now, your broad team might actually be the same team for each activity, but you need to know. Build on your follow-up system, both for Sundays and special events. Again, have your Facebook ready to go with a good page and good events, good reels, and focus a lot on the intro and about tab, as I just showed you, with that team to comment and share. Look for those local groups. That's a good thing for your team to do. You can split up the responsibility. You be in charge of paying attention to this group. You be in charge of paying attention to these two, that kind of thing. And then use that powerful @ sign when you can. All right, questions and answers. Well, I ran 1 minute over what I promised. Actually, for me, that's pretty good. So unmute yourself. And what questions did I leave unanswered? What conversation do you want to have?
It's always exciting to listen to you, and I think we are doing along the lines that you have taught us, because we have the series of the videos about Holy Week.
Mhm.
And I will send you the links in the email tomorrow morning. So
Mhm.
yeah, for me personally, the best time this year was on the Ash Wednesday, when we were at the nearby community college. Father Ray and Deacon Bob were offering communion ashes, because it was Ash Wednesday. And 2 girls came, Latino girls, and I started speaking Spanish to them because Spanish is my second language. So, and they wanted to have ashes, so we communicated, and they were very happy, visibly happy to receive the ashes and blessings, of course. And then 2 people came and they said they read the Facebook announcement, but they came to the church. They didn't realize they were elderly people, and we had the Alcoholic Anonymous, the meeting there. Those were the only people at the church at the time, but they pointed out that they need to travel to the nearby college. It only takes 5 minutes, so they came and they got the ashes and the blessings, and we gave them our new business cards with the QR code. We finally got our QR code. You probably saw it in my email. So Father Ray is going to have QR code for himself also. So we're getting there.
Good. Well, yeah, I will be sending out, and again, these are not meant to be the only tool you use. If you want to use them, you're welcome to. If you want to redo them, my ego will not be hurt because I don't think they're perfect by any means. But I have a series of videos, one on, I'm trying to remember if I did whole Palm Sunday or not. One on Holy Week, one on Maundy, Thursday, one on foot washing, one on Good Friday, and one on Easter. So if those will be tools you may or may not want to post. The one on Lent I sent you a while back. If anybody didn't get that and wants to use that, I can get you that one. That's doesn't hurt to run that one again, even though we're into Lent, we're not introducing it. So there's lots of good materials out there. The one on Lent, I'm trying to remember, did I send? There was one from the Roman Catholic Church that I really liked, and I got permission to share that one on. They did an excellent job explaining Lent. So
Thank you.
others.
Any suggestions about reaching out to college students and to newcomers moving into the community? We have lots of new housing developments going up here in Sanford, and a lot of these people are moving into the area for the first time. And the community college, a lot of those kids are coming, or move here just to attend community college. They're in apartments and so forth. We currently help stock a food pantry for the college students.
Okay, good.
So I'm thinking that might be an avenue that we might reach out to some of those students. But any ideas about either of those groups apart from the ideas you've already talked about?
Certainly the food pantry, I'd have a poster there at all times about, particularly again about Holy Week, although most of them will probably be gone for Easter. I don't know when the community college's vacation is, but I would certainly, anytime there's anything special going on, I'd have a poster that they see when they come to get the food from the food pantry. I don't think that's pushy. I think that's reasonable. As far as new people in the community, there's a lot of debate about the best way to do that. There's several options. You can buy lists of people who have recently changed their address. And basically what that is, the way they get the information, in some cases, they get it from the county register of deeds when a new person has bought a house. Sometimes they get it when somebody changes their magazine subscription, that kind of thing. I have mixed. I've never seen research on it. Okay, so this is my impression. I used those for a couple years. My problem with them is I think most people don't put finding a church immediate on their priority list when they move into a community. You got some who do, but I think most people, they're worried about getting the school set up, finding, where the nearest grocery store is, where the nearest tennis court is, those kind of things. And finding a church is fairly low. So getting them a postcard at the appropriate time is hard to figure out, and it's relatively expensive. I don't know. I haven't done it in years, so I don't know. It used to be about 75 cents per household. You buy the list and it costs you about 75 cents per household. Facebook has the option of one of the places you can boost to. One of the focus target audiences is recently moved into the area, but that's only people who have acknowledged to Facebook that they've changed their address. And it's worth using, but it's probably, I don't know, I'll take a wild guess and say 20% of the people who actually moved. So it's not a big change. One possibility, and knowing your area a little bit, is I would give some thought to doing the, what do they call it? The post office's Every Door Direct Mail, EDDM. What this is the postal patron thing you get from time to time. And if somebody has built a whole new neighborhood, it'd be, easy enough to put together an invite card and do it that way. And it's about the same cost as buying the list commercially. It's about somewhere in the 60 to 75%, 60 to 75 cents a household to send them out. We did that in Kernersville with that little church because they had a particularly large set of condos. Not the disadvantage. The challenge to that is you have to send it to every household a certain mail person delivers to, the entire mail route. And if you got a brand new subdivision, that conceivably could be divided among a couple different mail people. So, but that's easy enough to find out. I would probably use that. That would be my first choice, just because I think it's more effective. My guess is it's more effective, but as I say, I've never seen any research.
What's the name of it again? What's the name of it? What's the name of it again?
It's the U.S. Postal Service, Every Door Direct Mail, EDDM. And if you look that up on the web, they have a very simple follow through system to set it up. One thing you can do is, if you're going to do a large enough group, you're probably going to print them at a local printer, Sir Speedy or something. They can do all the work for you. You just tell them where you want it to show, and they'll do all the work for you. They'll charge you, but they'll do all the work for you. Because you've got to have a special. Oh, in fact, let me see if I got it here. This one doesn't have it. I thought I had one right here in front of me, but I don't. You got to have a special code on the envelope that says this has been paid as postal patron. And they know how, the Sir Speedy and those people, they know how to do that.
Do you think signs leading into a development like that, promoting a particular event, would be useful? Or they might
Possibly.
get taken down?
Possibly. Oh, it just spilled on me. Possibly. One of the things we see around here a lot is yard signs, campaign type signs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At the entrance to subdivisions and stuff, announcing this, that, and the other thing. Usually it's commercial, but not always. Sometimes it's the church's barbecue or, whatever. That'd be worth trying. In fact, but one trick to save you some money is our primaries are coming up in next couple weeks. And half the yard signs that are out there are going to become useless because the people lost. If you clean up the community by picking up those yard signs, then you got all the metal stakes you need. And that's half the cost of the yard sign, is the metal frame. But if you want some, I got about a dozen in my garage I could send to you. But yeah, yard signs at the entrance to a subdivision, I would probably make a point of not leaving them up there and extend, maybe for 2 days or something, and then you don't want to annoy people.
Right. Well, I was thinking of promoting a special event, like if we promoted our Easter egg hunt to people outside the congregation.
Yep, I think that would work. That's a possibility. Now, if I were going to do yard signs for the Easter egg hunt, I would think about the elementary schools, and I would think about daycare centers and after school programs.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you put them up at a subdivision, you will get some parents. If you put them up at a daycare center, you're getting all parents. And like I say, if they'll allow you to, and I was really shocked when we tried it one year, how many of the daycare centers would allow us to hand out invite cards. They just said, yeah, sure, no problem. And just stand there because again, most people pick their kids up about the same time, sometime after 5. Just stand there and say, would you like, to know about what's coming up? Hand them a card. If they say no, say, that's fine. I unfortunately the year we did it, we made the mistake of putting a lot of the cards inside, thinking the parents would go in and pick them up. But turns out I found out that most parents don't actually go into the school or into the daycare center. Most of them, their kids are picked up in the parking lot. So, but a yard sign in the parking lot would work too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Debbie or Betsy, you have anything?
I'm good, Ken. I was just stopping in to see what you'd been up to since the last time I checked in. One of the things I would recommend about yard signs too is I've used them a lot. Half price banners. You can get decently priced banners, and if you leave your dates either fairly open or get your lettering in the size that you can buy vinyl numbers to replace the date numbers, you have then a vinyl banner that you can use for several years.
That banner I showed you, actually the date on it the time had changed. We just got a little piece and glued it on. You have to be right up next to it to see it. Now I did go back to the people who made the original banner, so it matched up well. But yeah, absolutely. Banners are surprisingly inexpensive. I mean, well, surprisingly not as expensive as you would think. They're not inexpensive, but they're down there. And again, for what Pam was saying, now her location, I'm thinking about it, Pam. A banner or a yard sign would attract the people in your neighborhood, and that's certainly, you've had some turnout from those people. So that might be a useful thing to do, but it probably wouldn't reach many people beyond. There's not a lot of people drive through your neighborhood.
No, signs are not very effective, in my opinion, in our churchyard because we're on a side street.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was thinking of like an entrance into some of these new subdivisions. It's what I was thinking about.
Well, the other thing you might do is, a lot of people put the Episcopal Church sign at the corner of Main Street. It's not called Main Street. I can't remember what the main street there is called. But anyway, saying Episcopal Church 1 block this way. That's, I don't know that attract a great number of people, but it certainly, if people are looking for it, it's a nice way for them to find it.
That's a thought.
Debbie, I'm not sure where you're from. It says Debbie Holy Trinity, I guess. Well, Betsy, to answer your question, I've just been starting trouble. You asked what I've been up to? Just starting as much trouble as I can. Things going well your way?
Yeah, things are going really well. I'm staying really busy. Back and forth doing social media now for a couple of different churches. So
okay.
That's keeping me occupied. It's very different between the two. One of my churches is a much older congregation, and a lot of them still don't even trust Facebook. So it's a little bit more of a challenge there, getting the social media moving and working. The other congregation I work with Kathy, you know, and I just create stuff and she'll go out and share it and move it. And then we're in the process now of getting some PayPal set up for us to get some additional lines, because I think people trust PayPal a lot more than the church labeled Banco or stuff that they're not familiar with for online giving. So that's going to be one of our focuses. We'll be working more with you through the texting with that, with the PayPal.
Mhm. Yeah, and actually, I've seen more and more churches doing a dual system. They use PayPal for things like online giving from the streaming, or somebody that just walks in and wants to do it that way. But unfortunately, PayPal, unless it's changed in the last couple of years, will not allow ongoing donations. They will not allow pledging. So you have to have Vanco or one of those to do the pledging part. It's a
They are now, I think they're allowing reoccurring on a weekly basis, but not on a monthly basis.
Okay.
But our thought was that when we looked into it, we had a couple of members that are very much established with the Vanco online and are comfortable with it. But when you're going to someone who's outside of a church and you're saying donate online using Vanco, well, first of all, you're giving them another thing to sign up for, which really, who wants to sign up for yet another of anything right now? And they don't know the name. Whereas PayPal, the majority of people have some kind of access to it and are definitely familiar with it.
Yeah. No, I'm with a little bit of reluctance, I'm agreeing with you that you really need to have the PayPal option. The other problem, again, unless PayPal has changed, is they want to give you the money through their credit card. But there's enough, so you wouldn't want to do all your giving that way because you can't use it all that way. If they send you a check, they take their 3 or 4%. But if they do it through the credit card, they don't. Unless something's changed. I haven't checked it in a couple of years.
Yeah, they've just revamped it a lot because now they've come up with a special branch now for the nonprofits.
Oh, okay.
So you have to go in, like where I am in the process right now is I have the PayPal set up for the business account, but I actually have to I have to scan in our charter with our diocese. It shows that we're incorporated with the diocese. They'll research that, and then they'll give us the nonprofit status, and that opens up a whole different set of tools that we can use through PayPal.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. Thank you for telling me. I didn't know that. And that definitely, PayPal is a great option because people know it. And if they're doing it well, the thing Vanco and all the rest have going for them is they've been doing it for years, so they provide the right kind of reports to your treasurer and can kick out, what your pledge statement was and all this kind of stuff. But if PayPal's picking up on some of that, that'd be a good option. Debbie, I saw your chat thing that your speaker's not working. That's fine. And, I should have figured you were from I have no idea how you pronounce the name of your town, but that you were from there. I just didn't think about it. Glad you're with us. All right. Anybody have any other questions, any other comments, thoughts? Is there anything I have left out that would be helpful to you? All right. Well, it's time to get to the important stuff. Go see how the Duke basketball team's doing. Yeah. Pam knows what I'm talking about. All right. Well, have a blessed evening, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.